Hi everyone, and welcome back to English Enhanced, the channel designed to help you sound like a native in English. So today we're going to be covering some common mistakes that people make when they're speaking English. We'll review around 20 different phrases together, and we'll see if you can spot the mistake first, and then if you can work out what the correct version would be. So first, for example, we have, can you explain me the procedure? So what do you think the error could be? The correct version is, can you explain this procedure to me? So quite a lot of the time, non-native speakers, they forget to use to when they're talking about explaining something. So in this case, the word explain is typically followed by the preposition to when you're using the verb in the context of providing information or understanding to someone else. Okay, second example. Can you spot the error? Can you borrow me a pen? So the right answer would be, can you lend me a pen? So lend and borrow are related, and often they're used interchangeably when really they shouldn't be, because lend is a verb that's used when somebody gives something to someone else for a temporary period. So the person who lends is the one providing the item. And then borrow, on the other hand, is a verb used when someone takes or receives something from someone else for a temporary period. So the person who borrows is the one receiving the thing. And sometimes people get those two words mixed up, so it's always good to just kind of pay attention and make sure you understand them both. Okay, then 3. We have, I didn't bought it. Instead, can you spot what the correct version should be? Okay, and if you put I didn't buy it, that would be correct. So to understand why this is wrong, didn't is a contraction of did not, which is used to form the negative past tense in English. Buy is the infinitive of the verb, and it is used without an ed ending when used in the negative past tense with didn't. So the past tense of buy is bought, but in the negative past tense, we do not use the past participle bought. Instead, we use the base form or the infinitive buy. So the correct version, I didn't buy it. And one of the ways that helps me get my head around this is the way that I think of it is didn't, for me, is already expressing a past tense. Did not is past. For example, we have present, do not. So we're already expressing the past tense with did not. So there's no need to say bought in this case. Okay, number 4, can you spot the error? It didn't affect me. Okay, and the correct answer would be, it didn't affect me. So very, very similar. We have affect and affect, and the two words very similar and often confused due to this similarity, but they have different roles in a sentence. So affect, which is typically used as a verb, it wants to show influence in the sense of a change being produced or to have an impact on someone or something. Effect, on the other hand, is primarily used as a noun, and it refers to the result, outcome, or consequence of a particular action or event. And a good way to think about this is you can think about affect with an A is an action. So it's a verb representing the action of influencing or producing change, whereas effect with an E is an end result. So it's a noun and it represents the outcome or consequence of an action or event. Okay, number 5. I didn't know nothing. Okay, and the correct answer in this case would be I didn't know anything. So I didn't know nothing. You may sometimes hear people say this, but it's kind of non-standard or informal English. So in formal writing and standard English grammar, it's always best to avoid double negatives because they can create ambiguity and lead to potential confusion. So in practice, the way that double negatives work is that they cancel each other out and create a positive meaning. So when we're saying I didn't know nothing, what we're technically saying is I knew something, and this is where it gets a bit confusing. So the most straightforward suggestion would just be to say I didn't know anything, if you want to get your point across clearly. Okay, and then in this example, we have the ending me too. And can you spot what me too should be replaced with? Okay, so if you put me neither, that would be correct. So me too is used to agree with a positive statement, but me neither is used to agree with a negative statement. Okay, number 7. I have 30 years. So I imagine many of you got this. In this example, it would be I am 30 years old. And for those of you who didn't, it's because when we're trying to express age, we use the verb to be. So am is are instead of to have. Okay, number 8. So quite a common error now. How do you cool? And if you want to say this correctly, it would be best to use what instead of how. So what is the word that we use when we are asking for specific information? A specific term, a specific word is something very specific. Now, with this example, it's not necessarily something that's wrong, but there is a slight change here we can make to make it sound more natural. Can you spot it? Okay, so one way of making this phrase sound more natural is to swap one with a. So you can just say, can I have a coffee, please? So for me, when somebody's asking for one coffee, it sounds like they are specifying that they want one coffee in particular as opposed to maybe 2 or 3. So if you just want to say you'd like a coffee in general, it's perhaps advisable to use a instead. Okay, number 10. I have been living here since 3 months. Can you spot the mistake? Okay, and in this example, we need to replace since with for. If we're expressing a duration of time in English in a case like this, we need to use the preposition for to indicate for how long an action has been happening. Okay, moving on to number 11 then. She speaks English very good. Okay, and for those of you looking for the mistake, did you manage to spot that it should be she speaks English very well? So well and good are different because one is an adjective and one is an adverb. So an adverb describes a doing word, put very, very, very simply. And then in my head, I think of an adjective as a describing word for a thing, basically. So for example, you could say the pretty tree. So a tree is a thing and pretty is an adjective. Okay, so I'm not used to eat spicy food. Can you spot the problem? So the correct answer should be I'm not used to eating spicy food. So the phrase used to is an idiom that's used to talk about past habits or experiences, and it can be used to indicate that something was done regularly or habitually in the past but is no longer the case in the present. And most importantly, it's followed by the gerund form of the verb. And if that's a bit complicated to get your head round, the gerund form is basically the form of the version ending in ing. So walking, singing, flying, those kind of words. Okay, number 13. I need informations. Can you spot the problem? So I imagine quite a few of you got this. In this case, we need to use I need information. But do you know why? So information is what we call an uncountable noun, and uncountable nouns do not have a distinct plural form. So they remain the same in both the singular and plural. So uncountable nouns, they refer to kind of mass or abstract concepts, and we don't use them in a way that requires a specific plural form. So instead we can express different amounts or types of information using other means. So instead of saying informations, we might use pieces of information or bits of information. So number 14, we need to consider about the time. Do you know what's wrong here? So the correct answer would be we need to consider the time. And so the reason why we change this is because we don't need to include any unnecessary prepositions. The verb consider is followed directly by the noun or noun phrase that serves as its object. So when we include the word about in the original sentence, it just makes the whole phrase grammatically incorrect in standard English. Okay, now we have I'm interested to learn about different cultures. And so for those of you who attempted to fix this phrase, the correct answer would be I'm interested in learning about different cultures. So in English, the verb interested can either be followed by in or to, depending on the context. An interested in is the structure that's used when expressing interest in a specific subject, topic, or area of knowledge. So in this case, we would need I'm interested in learning about different cultures. Okay, so a long example now. We have, if I would have known about the event, I would have attended it. So can you spot what we can fix here? Okay, the correct version that we should ideally use would be, if I had known about the event, I would have attended it. And for added points, instead of saying would have, you can shorten this if you want to sound more native and just say would have. And so the reason for this is that we have different sentence structures in English when we use conditionals. We're not going to cover everything in the interest of time, but if you'd like to see more content on the use of conditionals, let me know and I can put together a video. Okay, so number 70 now. I'm not used to speak in public. Do you know how we can improve this? So hopefully you got this one right. We just need to add in a gerund form of the verb, so speaking. I'm not used to speaking in public. Okay, another long one again. So despite of working hard, he didn't achieve his goal. And the correct version would be, despite working hard, he didn't achieve his goal. So the use of despite alone is enough to convey the intended meaning, and using of and despite together is considered non-standard and should generally be avoided in formal writing in standard English. So here we have, in my opinion, the climate change is a big problem for our planet. What can we change here? So to make this sound more natural, we can say, in my opinion, climate change is a big problem for our planet. So in my opinion, the climate change is a big problem for our planet. The first example is not grammatically wrong. However, it's generally not considered the most effective way to express an idea in English, especially when we're talking about climate change. And it's to do with the use of the word the. So the is used when we want to refer to something very specific, whereas we're talking more broadly just about kind of concepts in general. We don't need to be that specific, so we can drop the. Okay, now I have a lot of homeworks to do tonight. Hopefully you can spot this one. So for those of you trying to make this better, what we need to say is I have a lot of homework to do tonight. Hopefully by now you should be able to spot that homeworks is an uncountable noun, which is what we have here. Okay, so that's everything for today. If you've made it to the end, congrats. I'm sure you're well on your way to developing your English. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below with how many errors you spotted. And also, if there's anything in particular you'd like us to create a video on, please let us know and we'll create content based on these needs. Thanks for listening.